one. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro, everyone. I am joined today by Sergei Kutrovski, or Sergei Kutrovski. Thanks for joining me, Sergei, for this conversation.
Glad to be here.
We're going to talk today about preparing for the times ahead. And today is the 27th of March. It's Friday in the year of 2020. We are dealing with all things COVID-19 for the foreseeable future of this situation. And right now the situation has escalated to whereby the curve is accelerating. It's continuing to accelerate. And as much as we try to flatten the curve, our efforts today will not eventuate into reality for 2 weeks, just because of the nature of the way that the virus works. And so as the curve accelerates and as we're starting to see mortality rates be reported and increase, I don't know about you, Sergei, but I'm starting to really get the reality of what's coming.
Yeah.
And I thought it is going to be important for us to talk about how we can be supportive of ourselves and of each other. And you are uniquely positioned to have this discussion in our industry because you were a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
If you say that with an Australian accent, it sounds like the Noodles version.
You're yeah.
But
Say minister.
Minister,
Yeah.
you're a minister. And so
Yeah.
while I'm not religious at all, I do know that my friends who were or are ministers are pastors in one form or another.
Yeah.
They have unique training in empathy and in compassion. And, I just thought it would be great for us to have a conversation about what this time ahead looks like and how we could potentially prepare for it. And any ideas that you might have for that you might want to share with us.
Yeah. I think going back to your opening and just understanding the gravity of the possibilities that COVID-19 is going to cause. I think the obvious part is looking at the fact that none of us are immune to COVID-19 in the sense of we're going to be affected. All of us have been affected
The effects
by
of
it.
it.
Yeah, it's like unavoidable at this point. And for me personally, I'm witnessing it hit pretty close to home. I have two friends who are, I believe, in their 60s or late 50s, who are going through insane amounts of pain.
Oh my God, I'm so
They're
sorry.
super sick. Yeah, and they just got testing, and they were both positive for COVID-19. And it's progressively getting worse. Like at one point, my friend felt like he was feeling better, like, oh, okay, like I'm gonna make it. And today, it just got drastically worse. So for me, this is super close. Like I'm literally watching and hearing stories of my friends. They live in Florida, so I don't get to actually be next to them or close enough. But I'm hearing the stories that are drastically affecting me, mentally, emotionally, and processing that is definitely tricky, but it's possible. So I think with looking at the magnitude of the effect of COVID-19, I think we have to also consider the pros and cons of what we're dealing here. I mean, the cons are obvious. Disruption has magnified because of the size.
Mm-hmm.
No one really has figured it out. We're changing, we're trying to understand it, but there's no way to figure out the effects of COVID-19. And then pain with all of this, pain is magnified. And it's all around us. We can't just disconnect from the pain, because if it's not happening to us, it's happening to a friend, it's happening to a loved one. And with that, the pros are we're all in this together now. That's a major pro. So relatability, understanding, and what you mentioned, compassion and empathy, are basically what we need to lean on, I believe, at this point. And I mean, I think what I would want to share from a ministry background as a minister, I think understanding compassion and empathy is like critical right now. From my understanding, compassion is like, okay, it's like sympathetic pity in a sense. It's like, I hear you, I understand you, you're going through this. But empathy is a little different.
Mm-hmm.
It's more or less like, I want to share this feeling and emotion with you. Like, I want to share this pain. I mean,
from the other person's perspective. So empathy is about, empathy is about putting yourself in the other person's realm.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and for anyone listening, it's important to understand that when you're expressing empathy, empathy is not about you. Empathy is about, how do I remove everything, all of my judgments, all of my feelings, all of that, and how do I just be present for the other person in their experience?
Yeah. It's sitting in the pain with them. You know what I mean? It's not like, this is not, I believe, to show empathy, this is not the time to think about, okay, how do you get them past
No.
Or how do you help people move on? We're not moving on. Like, this is not the time to talk about moving on. And this is where, like, with compassion, we approach the situation, but we release and use empathy as a big hug, a moment to like sit, embrace the pain, and hold on to it. So I think a lot of times, like you said, from a pastor and minister point of view, people always feel like as a minister, you have to have the right answers. And there is no need for right answers, or even those like, theological or ideas like that, transcendent questions about there's no point for that. I think
there's no place for that right now. That's not what's front and center.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, not to get too religious, but to bring up a story that always hits my mind is like, from my ministry times, looking at the life of Jesus, Jesus wept. You know what I mean?
And that's a statement of vulnerability. Like,
exactly.
And so this is why, and I think I've made it very clear in this podcast, I'm not religious. I was raised very, very Catholic, and I was very, very Catholic. And it's been a couple of decades now that I've been away from that. And I feel that for everybody who needs religiosity, go for it. But this is not about that. This is about, how do we show up human to human?
Yes.
How do we show up, whatever the basis of what your moral learning structure is, your emotional basis for building those things are, this is a time for allowing people to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's a time for allowing yourself to be vulnerable. It's a time for realizing, and please hear me, people, you do not have the fucking skills to even know what's coming. None of us do. There's not a person on the planet who understands what's coming.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's what you're saying is what I was told, and this is me being vulnerable with you and the listeners, is I went through a pretty rough divorce about 4 years ago. And what you're saying was like the balm to my soul when my counselor said, yo, relationships are tough. You don't have to figure this out. Like, you don't. Like, and looking back, that was a death of a relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I lost friends and family, not literally like death like we could experience in this situation, but the loss was there. And the answer wasn't like, do something, do this, do that. It was more about presence. Like, are you here? I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And we have to recognize that. And that's where being together and being united over this is absolutely key.
You and I were talking earlier today, and I was using the analogy of a dragon burning down a house. And if you're listening to this, I think it's important to draw the analogy, because I think it really, really fits here. the idea of what's going on in the world right now is the same as if you walked out of your house right now and your family was inside. And as you were standing outside out of nowhere, a dragon shows up, breathes fire onto your house, and completely incinerates it in one breath with your family inside there, with the people you care about inside there, with your co-workers inside there, with people that you didn't know in the apartment upstairs.
Yeah.
Not only are you dealing with the fact that, holy fuck, I just saw a dragon.
Yeah.
And am I living in a movie? Because dragons are only supposed to exist in a movie, just like this virus is only supposed to exist in movies like Contagion.
Yeah.
But you just watched while you were spared, and in one breath, a dragon took out everything you care about. You've got to process that as well. And then you've got to, once that has hit you, you've got to process the fact that you have to rebuild your life now.
Yeah.
All of that happened in 0.3 of a second.
Right.
That's kind of emotionally what people are trying to get their heads around and their hearts around right now. And I think it's important for us to prepare people for, none of us know how to understand what the dragon has just done.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I heard this from you or someone else, but right now counselors are, one, in high demand, but they also don't know what to say or do as well. And they're just looking at the situation like, oh, basically what you're saying, like, okay, we need to understand this dragon. We need to basically see like the obliteration that it's caused, that destroyed house. Then we have to look for a solution, and then we can talk about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like I said, no one's at the solution part. Everybody's still at the observing part. And I think we need to sit and listen to that pain from people within ourselves as well. You said something about the graph or the photo that you posted about understanding your emotions.
Yep.
Big one. I've seen that one. The feeling wheel. Yep. So we have to have a self-inventory where we can understand and then verbalize. I think verbalizing is key.
It really is.
Yeah. And in my ministry background, it was like called confession, right?
Yeah.
So that's basically
God, I don't miss those days, I got to tell you.
I mean, I'm not Catholic.
I know, but as a Catholic, I don't miss the days of having to go and confess to someone.
But there's something we can learn from that,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. It's talking out loud. It's counseling. I feel like that the point, had they have developed the idea further, should have been about counseling.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Yeah. So it's that release of pain, and then the idea of being comforted, or the comfort of being with that pain.
Yeah.
You know? And we're going to go through that stage, and it's going to, like, when people say like, oh, we can get back to normal, some people I've heard said in April, like,
no, people.
What are you, how?
Not going to happen. Like, and I know that there are a couple of people who have gotten pissed at me because I'm being so kind of real about the reality of it. I'm not going to apologize for that. Because while a bunch of people are out there trying to make you feel all warm and fuzzy about this, they are doing you the greatest disservice that they could possibly fucking do right now.
Yeah.
That's like saying, oh, don't worry if a dragon shows up. Just pretend it's a seagull. No. I believe in transparency. I believe in facts. I believe in data. I believe in science when it's done well. I believe in listening to people who know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah.
And I've studied this stuff at university. I can tell you they are not talking bullshit. Like, this is so beyond real. But the one thing that I do want to tell people, with everything that's coming, we have one superpower. As Sergei was saying, we are in this together.
Yeah.
And we are about to bond in ways as a community that will become the greatest gift that we have been given in our lifetimes.
Yeah. I've seen people share pain, deal with it within the context of community, and that community grew to be so much closer and tighter together, because not only did they help a person manage the pain or deal with it, process it, understand it, but they all shared in the pain.
And we're about to do that here.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's key, because I mean, we can, and I don't want to sound, when I'm hopeful, I'm not ignoring the fact how bad it is now. But I also want to address that there is hope that if we heed to the warnings, well, it's too late to, you know what I mean, ignore it. But if we take things that are true and things that, for example, what you're saying, and we start applying those things, start moving forward with that kind of application, then yes, we on the other side as humanity can learn how to cope with pain and grow out of this experience as a community.
Right.
This is not something that as an individual, oh, I learned this and I'm going to leave. No, you're not going to be able to learn this individually, but it has to happen in a corporate sense.
It's one of those things where this is one of the rare things that happens that you're not going to be able to run away from. You won't be able to escape to another country to pretend like, you know, the trauma that's happening in your city isn't happening. Everywhere you go, this will be there. And so this is a time of surrender to what you're feeling and what you're thinking and what the people around you are experiencing. This is a time of surrender to the stillness. This is a time of surrender to the idea of what's the life that I have created for myself and how is that serving me in a time of the most extreme trauma that I will ever experience.
Yeah, totally.
This is a reset.
Yeah, totally. And I remember sitting with, you know, people and talking about pain and processing that. I think you also, as you process that, you have to cast hope, you know. There has to be some sense of hope too.
100%.
I mean, we can, at this point, we can only speculate what the future is going to look like. We can only speculate at what the actual effects and the consequences of what we're dealing with, or a lack of leadership is going to cost us, you know. But a funny thing is, my wife Deja and I,
shout out to Deja, you beautiful human.
Yeah, she's amazing. And we've, like, even when we started, when we got engaged, we used this term that I think it's genius, but that's just me. And it's forever is now.
Yeah.
And that term came out of this place of us talking about, like, hey, like, whether we get married, whether we don't, like, we're right here, right now. And that was a sense of hope for me. Is like when I look forward to getting past COVID-19, I have to look at the hope that is now.
Right.
And that is what we're doing, what we're talking about, how we're serving other people, how we're distributing empathy, how we're being compassionate. That is the hope that we'll get through this.
You know, that's so wonderful.
Hope.
Say again?
I said we can't base our hope on, oh, this is going to end in April or this is going to end in June. We don't know.
No, we don't know. We do know it's not going to end in April.
Yeah.
We know that much, but what we don't know is how far it's going to be. Right. And I guess to that, and talking about how do we face the times ahead, what I kind of want to say to people, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is right now the only thing, in a time of complete lack of control, in a time where all of your control is being stripped away from you, the only thing you can control is how you show up for this.
Yes.
And so if you're showing up with compassion, with vulnerability, with humility, with grace, with all of those things, and just saying, okay, I'm here to learn from this moment.
Yeah.
If you're here to just sit in the discomfort, of what trauma we are all experiencing, and you're prepared to show up to a community that's willing to be there with you, or that's inviting you to be there, a part of that. And I'm here to tell you, if you don't know of a community that's there for you, we are there for you. We are there for you at around 4 o'clock every day, 7 days a week, Instagram Live on the Map It Forward Instagram at iMapItForward, and we will just sit together. I anticipate that sometime in the future, a lot of it will just be us all sitting there in silence, potentially.
Yeah, totally.
And so
well, you've noticed my brother and I on Mirror.
Every
we've been
morning.
doing every morning. We don't know what's going to happen. There is no plan. I set up my pour over station in front of my phone. He does at home. And we just sit there, brew some coffee, some pour overs, and then wait for whoever shows up.
Yeah, and I've shown up, and I got to tell you, it's just lovely to see two brothers have a coffee together over the phone.
Exactly.
There's something just so lovely to see about people sharing togetherness right now.
Yeah. It's different.
It's different.
Much different.
I mean, I guarantee you that the first chance you get to have a coffee with him in person, it's going to be the best fucking coffee you ever drank.
Absolutely. That's what we've been talking about. Like, the people that are showing up, some of them are my regulars at the cafe when I'm behind the bar.
Yeah.
This is the closest to regulars we can get, is doing those Instagram lives and talking, connecting, and then it overspills to outside of Instagram Live, and we're texting more, we're talking more. And I think that's super important right now. That is a place we can set up an environment and basically have the opportunity to show empathy when we create those connections with people.
And for anyone who isn't well-versed in how to express empathy or compassion, it's something that hasn't been modeled to you or whatnot, we still invite you to show up. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything. Sometimes it's just necessary to be in other people's presence. And that's the best way that you know how to show up. And that's totally okay.
Yeah.
We don't want anybody to be alone throughout any of this or ever. But this is a time when you being alone in your own trauma could mean that you survive COVID-19, but don't survive suicidal thoughts and the hopelessness that comes with that. And we are here for you. And in preparing for the times ahead, what we want you to know is that you have a community that welcomes you, that is non-judgmental, that isn't in any way swayed. We don't give a fuck what your religious beliefs are. We don't care what your governmental beliefs are. We don't care what race or sex or sexual preference or anything. You're human.
Right. Yep.
Show up. We're here for you. And we will just be present. We're 100%. I'm going to fall apart. 100% Sergei and everybody else that comes and hosts these Instagram lives is going to fall apart.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you know what? I'm okay with that.
Yeah, me too.
Like, but one thing is I don't want to fall apart alone.
Yeah, what a great statement. That just sums up the whole thing of what I'm trying to say. We don't want anyone to fall apart alone. Yeah. We might not have the answers to make you feel better, but it's not anyone's job to make you feel better. We just want to be of service by showing up.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be any religion to be able to do that. You just got to be willing to sit in the discomfort that your heart is expressing right now. And that's okay, because none of us have the heart muscles for this yet.
Right. Yeah.
And so Sergei and I are going to be live together on Instagram today at 4:30 Pacific time. I may even just let Sergei do it on his own. We'll just see how it goes today. I've got a bunch of stuff on that I'm trying to... I'd actually like to just observe the way that you engage with everyone today while I'm watching.
Yeah.
But in finishing, what do you say to people who are approaching this situation with anxiety and with fear?
Yeah. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, the
Is
sigh.
literally breathe in and breathe out and be like, yes. Yeah, it's there. And I think, especially with fear, moving past fear is like, in my sense, it's like, it's a different form of belief. It's a different form of faith. So it starts with, I would say, okay, so love is the opposite of fear, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, I would say, hey, who loves you? What do you love? And let's look at that. But also admit to the fact that, hey, this is scary. I'm scared. Like, we share that, and we already know, like, that you can't ignore fear, but you also can't, combat it by saying, "Ooh, I'm not gonna be afraid." That's not the answer. It's, once again, it's, in my opinion, it's like, it's love. Who do you love? Where do you see love? And how can we focus on that? And how can we move with service? How do we serve one another? Like, you're like a superhero and a big example to me, because you had COVID-19, and in the midst of that, you loved your audience.
Dude, I'm going to fall apart. Don't.
You're going through all this, and you're looking and telling people, you guys, I don't want you to deal with what I'm dealing. I want to protect you, and I want to protect the public, and I'm going to do everything I can. Like, I see your presence online, and like we talked about it earlier, you are like, Elixir is one thing, but Map It Forward is like your focus right now. And like, that's leadership. That's how you combat fear. You had all the right to sit with your fear and just say, I am so afraid and I'm going to be paralyzed by it. But you got up, showed up online, and started loving people. And that's what I mean by conquering fear with love.
I don't even know what to say.
Thank you.
Thanks. I appreciate you saying that. It's been a time when none of us are going to really understand what this is. I don't think I'll be able to even get my head around it. And I'm like a super processor when it comes to emotions. And I don't think it's going to be years before I understand what we've all gone through.
Yeah.
But we show up in the way that we know how to, in the moment that we're in. That's all we can expect from anyone. And if showing up in silence is all you can do,
yeah,
I have gratitude for the fact that you've stepped into the fear and the vulnerability of that fear just to show up. It's so hard for people who are scared of other people to just show up and to say, you know what? I just need to be around people right now. And the only way I know how to do that is I'm going to go and be in an Instagram live and say nothing and sit here in my terror. But at least I'm not going to be alone.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
And so I just want everyone to know you are not going to be alone through any of this. We're going to show up. And we hope that you will too.
Yeah.
Sergei, I really appreciate you showing up today. And once again, making my eyes leak. I appreciate you so much, sir, and I look forward to the Instagram live today at 4:30.
Likewise. Thank you again.
Peace, love, and peanut butter, everyone. Have an amazing rest of your day. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.